Genesis chapter 12 starts, the Lord said to Abram, "Go forth from your native land and from your father's house to the land that I will show you, and I will make for you a great nation." End quote. And Abraham obeys that command. I often wondered why Abraham left, why he left. Certainly the promises of riches and blessings are tempting, but imagine what it must have been like 2000 BCE when living was much more tribal, and how difficult it must have been to leave one's family. Today we often don't think about that. Families are travel across continents. Most of us, parents, children, siblings, don't live where we do. But back then, it really had to be something dramatic. And so, today being Father's Day, I thought I would explore a bit about Abraham's father, Terah. So I know stuff my father said, it sounded like a great title 3 months ago, but things change. So, we don't read too much about Terah in the Bible. He's mentioned a few times, mostly in chronologies. In one instance in the book of Joshua, it mentions that he worshipped other gods. If you notice the quote at the top of your order of the service from the Quran, there's many stories of Abraham in there. But the quote I chose, it says, "Remember when Abraham said unto his father, 'Do you take idols for God?'" End quote. It doesn't say that anywhere in the Bible, or the Jewish scriptures, I should say. That story in the Quran, though, actually is very similar to a story from Jewish Midrash. Now, Midrash is an interpretation of the Bible. It tries to fill in the gaps in between the stories that we read. Midrash tries to make the Bible meaningful to people in the times for which they are writing it. Now, the word midrash actually derives from the Hebrew word to search, to seek, to investigate. Now, there are two famous midrashim, that's plural for midrash, that deal with Abraham, not midrashes, I had to look that one up, that deal with Abraham leaving his homeland. Both are from Genesis Rabbah, which was edited in its final version in the 5th century, and from a literary analysis, it's believed to have originated in the 1st century, and so it was obviously written before the Quran was written. And the first midrash starts this way. Terah, the father of Abraham and Haran, many people don't even know Abraham had 2 brothers, was a dealer in idols as well as a worshiper of them. Once when he was away, he gave Abraham his stock of idols to sell in his absence. In the course of the day, an elderly man came to make a purchase, and Abraham taunted him, questioning the soundness of his mind by saying, "How could you call something God that was made by the hand of another man just a few hours ago?" And the man took the words of Abraham to heart and gave up idol worship. Again, later that day, a woman came with a handful of fine flour to offer Terah's idols. Abraham took a stick and broke all the images except the largest one. And then he placed the stick in the hand of the largest idol. And when his father returned and saw the havoc that had been committed on his gods and property, he demanded an explanation. And Abraham explained that when an offering was, fine flour was brought to these divinities, they quarreled amongst themselves as to who would be the recipient. And when the biggest idol, being angry at all this commotion, decided to take a stick to chastise the offenders, and in so doing broke up all the other idols. So Terah, of course, understood this correctly as mockery, and angered, said to Abraham, "These are nothing but stone creations. You destroyed our shop. You destroyed our family's future." If you know that they are just stone, asked Abraham, why do you sell them? Why do you allow people to believe that they are more than just sculpted rock? It is not my place to take from people that which they hold dear, answered Terah. I am here to give them what they ask for, even though I myself do not believe what they want is of any value. This is a sham, declared Abraham. That is deceitful and dishonest. I will not be a part of such a charade. Terah became incensed and drove Abraham out of his house. End quote. Now there are some versions of the story where Abraham leaves the house frustrated at his father's beliefs. But either way, Abraham and his father parted over his father's religious beliefs. Although it was not so much over his religious beliefs as it was over his inauthentic beliefs. I think many of us who come here have, from other religions, can understand that. We have realized that we cannot, in good conscience, continue to repeat the words that we learned in our childhood religion any longer. That they no longer had meaning to us. But I think the interesting question actually arises in Terah's plea when he says, I am here to give them what they ask for. End quote. I think much of what passes for religion in our culture today is giving people what they ask for. We live in a consumer culture. But Unitarian Universalism has always been, I think still is, somewhat countercultural in many ways. We have a different vision. We have a vision of challenging people, of changing people, of inspiring people. A vision that doesn't just give people what they want, a quick fix to all of life's solutions in one quick answer. No. For when the dark night of the soul comes and we must face ourselves, that quick fix leaves us quite empty. Ours is a religion that gives people what they need. A feast for the mind and the soul that is healthy for them. A fountain of wisdom that allows people to grow a path to self-awareness that adds to the depth of understanding that helps us realize our needs. And that our needs are interdependent with others' needs and interdependent with the earth that sustains us. A community. We are a community that lives by its core value of love. And sometimes we need to hold up the idols in our society and smash them, much like Abraham did. We as a religion have a long history of doing such things. When others said that humanity was born of original sin, we smashed that idol. We said no. We believe in a humanity that is born with goodness. When others said there was only one way to obtain salvation, it was only for some, we smashed that idol and we said no. There are many paths to the top of the mountain. It is available to everyone. When others preached hatred towards those who were different than them, we smashed that idol. And we said we are on the side of love. And so I ask you to consider, what are your idols? What ideas are you holding on to that you just can't let go of? That prevents you from moving forward? We're so often clinging to what we have because we feel safe and secure in knowing what we know. The concept of uncertainty, that we don't know what we don't know, is what scares us. This fear and clinging prevents us. It prevents us from trying new things and inhibits our opportunities for growth and fulfillment. Our principles call us for a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, and for growth and fulfillment. Our principles call for the encouragement of spiritual growth. And what this story speaks to me about is our need to be authentic to who we really are, to be authentic to what we really believe, and the need to move away from the traditional, to find new ways to experience the world and new ways to live out our values in the world. But the next midrash I'm going to read to you gives a different version of why Abraham left home, and I think it has a different message to share. This midrash starts after the idol smashing, and Terah hands Abraham and his brother Haran over to Nimrod. Now Nimrod is mentioned only a few times in the Jewish scriptures as a mighty warrior and hunter. And the midrash states, and I quote, Nimrod suggested to Abraham that since he had refused to worship his father's idols because of their want of power, he should worship fire, which is very powerful. Abraham, of course, pointed out that water has power over fire. Well, said Nimrod, then let's declare water God. But replied Abraham, the clouds absorb the water, and even they are dispersed by the wind. Then let us declare wind our God, said Nimrod. Bear in mind, continued Abraham, that man is stronger than wind and can resist it and stand against it. So now at this point, Nimrod is becoming very weary of arguing with Abraham, decided to cast him before Nimrod's god, fire, and challenged Abraham's deliverance by the God of Abraham, and Abraham was saved from the fire. Now Haran too was challenged to declare his God, but halted between the two opinions and delayed his answer until he saw the result of what happened to Abraham. And when he saw that Abraham was saved, he declared himself on his side, thinking that he too, having now become an adherent of God, would be saved by the same miracle. But since his faith was not real but depended on a miracle, he perished in the fire, into which he was cast by Nimrod. And this is hinted on in the words of Genesis 11:28, and Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity. End of quote and story. This story is just so rich with possibilities. On the one hand, it can be looked at in a very humanistic way, that Abraham is rejecting the mysticism of his father's generation and affirming the power of his experiences in the world. It can be read as a coming-of-age story where Abraham is leaving, striking out on his own, distancing himself from his elders. When I first read the story many, many years ago, I was instantly drawn to the metaphorical message that we need to take a stand for what we believe in. I still think that this is true analysis of the story. If we just sort of put our finger up in the air to see which way the wind is blowing, sort of as Haran did, then we will be consumed by life. Or as the John Mellencamp's line from his song goes, you've got to stand for something or you will fall for anything. So you can't depend on miracles. You must depend on the righteousness of your actions and accept the consequences. Sometimes we need to risk everything to understand the blessing that we are and the blessing that this life is. We have to believe in ourselves even when others do not, even if we are ever to reach our potential. And if we allow others to define us, we will never know ourselves. Perhaps we will fall short on our journey of discovery, as Abraham often did, but it will be a journey of fulfillment, a journey of discovery, and a journey of self-awareness. All such journeys are not without risk and without consequences, but that journey is worth taking in our quest for wholeness. Yet upon deeper study of this story over the years, I just cannot also ignore the psychodynamic interpretation of this story by actually even the classical rabbinic commentators and most modern midrash commentators. They point to this story to show that Abraham was abused by his family and that he suffered from PTSD and survivor's guilt. The experience of having been thrown in the fire and watching his brother die in the fire in and of themselves caused trauma for Abraham. And it also could have been symptomatic of a lifetime of abuse by their father. And this actually makes sense when we look at some of the future Abrahamic stories. Abraham is willing to sacrifice his wife as a way to protect himself. He allowed the abuse of and then the abandonment of his mistress Hagar and his first son Ishmael. And then the story of his almost sacrificing, killing his second son Isaac. Rabbi Michael Lerner states, and I quote, "Abraham is a man who has been traumatized, to some extent made insensitive to others. A man whose experiences of pain in childhood will remain with him in adult life, just as each of us carries into our adult life the pain and oppression of our childhood. But in the end, Abraham chooses not to sacrifice his second son, Isaac. And after that, he never again in the Bible story speaks to God. He had learned to face the voice of violence in his head, and he rejected it. The story shows the need to be able to face and transcend the traumas of our past if we ever hope to create wholeness in our lives. We do not have to repeat the cycle of violence and destruction in our lives. We do not have to treat others the way we have been treated. We do not have to allow ongoing treatment of the way we have been treated. We need to face and overcome the pain of our past for the sake of our future and the future of those we care about. The story of Abraham gives us hope. Hope that we can do this, that we can choose to live, that we can choose to get help, that we can choose to change, that we can choose not to be trapped by the circumstances of our history. We can choose to create a new way of being. We can go forth from whence we came and build a great nation, build a great life. So let us discard the dogmas that tell us we cannot succeed. Let us face the challenges in our midst. Let us transcend our past. Let us look to the future and to future generations and how our actions will impact them. What type of world will we create? May it be rich in love and may it be full of blessings. Amen.